podcast Amsterdam.
Amsterdam will elect a new city council and district committees on Wednesday, the 16th of March 2022, and many international residents are eligible to vote. The local GroenLinks and D66 parties organised an election special in English on the 9th of March at the Podium Mozaïek. They were joined by PvdA, Volt and VVD. It was a chance to hear directly from these parties on their plans for making Amsterdam a better place, covering everything from housing and sustainability to public safety and culture. Here's how it went down.
Ting, 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 ladies and gentlemen. I'm not actually supposed to start yet, but let me introduce two people who are organizing this evening. Please welcome Reinier and Rutger. All right.
Yes. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. And it's not that we're going to be a comic duo or something like that. Reinier is faction leader of the Social Liberal Party D66. I'm faction leader of GroenLinks, Dutch Green Party. And we have seen that there are a lot of internationals in the city and a lot of internationals who can vote. So we wanted to access information about the upcoming municipality elections. And we wanted to organize a small event. So it's not going to be a real debate because a lot of other parties and myself, to be quite honest, are not that comfortable in having a real rough debate. But I'm very happy that you're here, and I hope you'll have an interesting evening. I would like to make a small shout out to Jared, who has organized a lot of stuff.
Definitely.
Thank you, Jared.
And then I'll pass on to Reinier, but I just want to make sure, please, of course you can vote for me, but please vote. That's the main object of tonight. Please vote on whoever and on whatever party you would like. Please vote and tell your friends, your neighbors, and whatever.
Thank you, Rutger. Well, what more can I add? What I would really like to stress, like, you guys are all Amsterdammers, and if you're from here or abroad, the problems the city are facing are the same for everybody. So tell your friends to go vote. It's really important. And Rutger and I wanted to do this because the turnout for internationals is every election so low, and this election is so important. It's about housing, it's about how much parks there are in your neighborhoods, how safe the city is. So let's make a difference on 14th, 15th and 16th March, sorry, May. Oh, first mistake.
Okay, if you would like to vote for D66, it's on the 15th of May.
Yeah. And I would very much, of course, like to thank Greg and Robin for hosting this with us, and the other parties for coming and not making this just a party of D66 and GroenLinks. Let's have a good night.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank D66 and GroenLinks for organising this event. We estimate that around 100,000 Amsterdammers without Dutch nationality actually have the right to vote in these local elections. So when you consider how many votes there are, that's quite a lot. We control quite a lot of seats between us. While many of us speak Dutch, this year 10 political parties have published information in English, which is an increase on 2018. But I have to say it's a pity that the city of Amsterdam hasn't done more. The letter, for example, that goes out with every stempas is in Dutch. It could easily be in English, as it is in Eindhoven, for example. The stemvisor voting tool, something which is supposed to happen in English, isn't in English yet, but it is in English in Maastricht and in Groningen and even in Baarn. So, you know, there's a way to go here, Amsterdam. But, you know, it's great to see so many people here. It shows that the international community in Amsterdam is interested in what's going on, and they're not busy ensuring that Amsterdammers can't find a place to live, because that's what a lot of people like to say. And for my part, what I hope to hear this evening is concrete suggestions and answers to the very real problems that the city faces. Everyone wants affordable housing to combat climate change and to ensure that we live in an inclusive city. But what we need is practical solutions and quantifiable measures. And I hope by the end of the evening, gentlemen and ladies, that we are a little bit wiser about what they are.
Thank you. I'll take that. Now, that was Robin Pasco from Dutch News. What else? Podium Mozaïek. Thank you for having this event at Podium Mozaïek. So, please help me welcome the parties that have joined for this evening. First of all, let us invite from left to right, from GroenLinks, Mr. Rutger Groot-Wassink. Hold your applause. Oh, no applause. From D66, Reinier van Danzig, come on up here. From PvdA, the Labour PvdA party, we've got Fatia Abdi, yes. Okay, welcome. From Volt, yes, the new Volt party, we've got Kim Top. The best name ever. And from VVD, we've got Stijn Nijssen, yeah. Stijn, come on up. How do I say VVD? It's the liberals, but for the Americans, we always get confused because liberale means something different in America. But how do you describe VVD in English?
The liberals. Let's go for the liberals.
The liberals, okay. I'm going to go with the liberals, Alex. Anyway, so let us now start with some opening statements. Again, you cannot get too close to that microphone, so you can even move it if you like. There we go. Let's go, again, from left to right. Opening statements, 2 minutes on the clock. And Rutger, you're first.
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you again for being here. There's a lot at stake, and I think that the municipality elections will be decisive on the course of the city for the next 4 years. The last elections in 2018, Amsterdam chose for a greener and more progressive coalition. And I think that we have made a lot of results, that we have gained a lot. But still, we face major changes and major challenges as a city. If you look at climate change, a lot has to be done because our national government is just waiting behind. And that's why we need all kinds of sustainable energy. We need windmills on land, we need solar panels, we need isolation programs. But climate change for GroenLinks, the Dutch Green Party, is one of the major issues. But then again, we face inequality, rising inequality, not only by the way who gets to work and who gets to a stage and stuff like that, but also on the housing market. What we see is that we lack affordable housing, and we want to build way more houses, but we also want to build affordable houses. Because what we see from our point of view, housing is a right. But houses have become more of an asset to gain wealth than a fundamental human right. So that's why we think that we should build way more affordable houses and invest in affordable housing. And maybe as last point to make, I'm not quite sure how much time I'm taking, but what we fear is the increasing polarization in the city. We see that a lot of people are turned up against each other. Amsterdam has always been an open city. Migration is the DNA of this city. And today, as deputy mayor or responsible for the shelter of refugees, I'm working on the providing of shelter for people from the Ukraine. But as Amsterdam, we feel that we should provide shelter for every refugee, wherever they come from. If it's from Afghanistan, it's from Syria. We have to make sure that we are always a tolerant city with an international view on society and make sure that there's a place for everybody in Amsterdam as a tolerant city. Thank you very much.
That's right. D66, Reinier van Danzig.
Thank you, and again, thank you for being here. The coming elections are, for me, very important for the future of our city. I think everybody had a really rough time in the pandemic, and I'm quite sure not only entrepreneurs or the cultural sector, but also you guys as internationals must have faced a pretty lonesome time. So we need to restore and recover Amsterdam, especially the economy of Amsterdam, to make sure Amsterdam is the buzzing city we all love. And alongside that, we have a few crises that are really making it difficult for Amsterdam to be what Amsterdam is, and has always been. I think we have a housing crisis, so we need to build more houses and regulate the market to make sure rents are affordable. We have a crisis of equality of opportunities, so we need to invest in education, and we need to make sure that our children still have teachers in the classroom, which is really a big, big challenge. And the third one, the climate change crisis. I think we all know that if happens what happened on some parts of the planet, or even in Limburg, which is not so far away, could really destroy Amsterdam. Amsterdam is really on the verge of getting flooded if the sea level rises. So I want to make sure we do everything we can to stop the climate change from happening. And of course, Amsterdam has to lead the way. We've always done that. We're an innovative city. We're a city that's open to everybody, where ideas are growing. So I'm quite optimistic that we can face all those challenges, but still these elections may be the most important elections of the last years. And I very much like to support the statement of Rutger. I think we all have seen that we're in a very troublesome time in the world. War is again on the continent of Europe. There's going to be loads of refugees, and we have to make sure Amsterdam stays this open city. And we have to battle polarization. I'm quite sure all the internationals I talk to face this polarization as well. There are parties who like to say that internationals are, have caused all the problems that Amsterdam is suffering. And I will always fight that, because I think that I'm an Amsterdammer, you are an Amsterdammer. We'll have to make sure this is the greatest city in the world. Thank you.
From Labour, PvdA, Fatia Abdi.
Well, maybe I can start first with a more personal anecdote. I think I'm now 2 years back in Amsterdam. Before I was living in London. And while I was living in London, I was living in Whitechapel, which some of you who know in the UK is one of the most impoverished areas, I believe, in London. And it was during the Corona crisis, actually pandemic, I really realized how fortunate I was to be from the Netherlands and to have the opportunity and the safety I felt in the Netherlands, because the first things I saw that happened was that a lot of people lost their jobs, people got more sick, it was very difficult for people to access care. And as I was going to my job as a consultancy firm, I was literally walking all over the homeless people that are sleeping on the street. And with the years I was living in London, I got more enraged and angry, really angry I was seeing about level inequality, that I saw similar stories also happening in Amsterdam, and the divide was widening here as well. So I decided to come back. I decided to run for my party, the Labour Party, because I believe that Amsterdam, as I know and how I lived in Amsterdam for the years, should be an inclusive, a social and a fair society. And that is also what my party, the Labour Party, has always been committed to. So the three things that we feel personally at the moment is of huge importance. First, housing has become a site for speculation for the wealthy few, which means that for many, many people in the city, it's very difficult to afford and to access a decent home. The second thing that's a huge problem as well in the city now, and has unfortunately become worse because of the horrible war in Ukraine, is the living cost, the rising cost of living in the city. For many, many people, their bills are way too high, and the energy bills now is something that actually my party is really, really concerned about. So we want to tackle the energy bill crisis. We want to tackle the living cost prices for the city so that people can afford to stay in the city. Many people who are also the backbone of our society and the public service in our city. And the third one, something that I'm very passionate about, and especially something that made me want to come back to Amsterdam and help fix this problem. I want Amsterdam to be a city that's inclusive for a very diverse community. I don't want to be a city where it's only fun and wonderful for the wealthy few, and for many, many people feel they have to leave their homes, leave their neighborhoods, and get chased out. So I want Amsterdam to be a prosperous city, inclusive city, where everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of their wallet, regardless of their start of life, how long they've been in the city, can build their future here. So that's something we're committed to for my party.
Thank you. From the Volt Party, Kim Top.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Kim, and I'm from Volt, and we're the new kid on the block here. We started off 5 years ago, and we started off after the Brexit. And we thought, as a European Union, we need to unite, and we need to not be take parts there. So that was when we started off as a pan-European party. This is the first time we actually take part also in the local elections here in the Netherlands, because we believe that politics starts all locally. So also here we very much need it. And our vision for also Amsterdam is that we can also take a lot of the examples that we see in Europe, in other European cities, back to Amsterdam. So we see also locally here, they might seem as local problems, but we see them also in other European cities. And you can think about the housing crisis, but also how do we work towards being a more climate smart city. So what we have done is that we also looked at those cities. And so as Volt, we really want to bring back all those best practices from Europe to Amsterdam, but also from Amsterdam to Europe. We really want to flourish in Amsterdam for social equality. We really want to be climate smart, and we really want to have more citizen participation, because we really believe outside of borders, and we believe in connection and progressive, positive ideas that bring also the Amsterdam city forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim Top. That was Volt. And let us hear from VVD. This is Stijn Nijssen. VVD Amsterdam.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I think I'm a bit nervous about my English, but my colleagues are speaking way better English than I expected. I think we never spoke English before. No, and I'm happy to be here. This is like a home game. I live around the corner. I want to share 3 things with you where I believe in, and my party, my Liberal Party, believes in. I think one of the first and foremost things we need to make sure and ensure that it stays that way in Amsterdam is that you have the freedom and the safety to be wherever you want to be, who you want to be. I think one of the great examples is over here to the left near the Bos en Lommer Square. There's like a rainbow road, and I think it's a symbol for here in Amsterdam you can walk hand in hand with your lover, whoever you want to, and you should feel safe, you should feel free, you should be feeling enabled to be able to be yourself, whoever you want to be, everywhere in the city. So I think that's one of the most important things we need to ensure as a municipality. So that's first and foremost. Second one is the housing market. I'm actually very happy that there's so many people who want to live in Amsterdam, because obviously that's part of the problem. And I think most of all of my colleagues here, they want to fix the housing market. I think we have different views on how to do it, because the Liberal Party feels that a lot of people, they want to buy a house. People want to buy a house, they want to be able to buy a house. Lots of families leave the city because they cannot, because there's simply not enough of affordable housing in the buying segment. So we believe that there should be 10,000 houses built per year, and of which 50% should be made available to be bought in the segment between 300,000 euros and 500,000 euros. So we ensure that there's more and more people who are enabled to buy a house in the upcoming times, because there's no easy solutions. There are no solutions right now. There are only solutions on the long term. So in the third and last one, we want to do a lot here in Amsterdam. There's not that much space. We want to live here, work here, go to school, want to go to the park, want to go for a swim. So there's not enough space. So mobility is key. So we need to ensure in Amsterdam that we invest in our public transport, especially in New West, in Noord, in Zuidoost. That we invest in bicycle lanes, safe bicycle lanes all over the city. And that we don't forget there are still people who depend on the car in Amsterdam, and the car should have a place in Amsterdam, but it should be like as a part of the mix.
There we go. Thank you, Stijn. And this is great. Everybody, I thought, very clear. You guys are clear as well. We'll have a chance for question and answer coming up after one of our topics. Let's go to topic number 1, that is affordable housing. Ta-da! There it is. As a preview, we do have 3 topics for tonight. Try to avoid the crossover. So affordable housing is number 1. We will be talking about sustainability, climate as topic 2. And topic 3 is kind of the catch-all. Inclusivity as well as arts and culture. Let's go to topic 1. Topic 1, affordable housing. So we have 2 main questions to answer. How will you make it easier for Amsterdam residents to find affordable housing? And how much should we build / how far should we go in regulating the real estate market? Can we start with Fatia, please?
Yeah, so as I said, I think the biggest issue actually in the city, and one of the things that we're very committed to as the Labour Party is actually 2 things. First, we think that a lot of people can't afford a decent house in the city. It's a huge problem. And we believe that housing is a right, and we think that is a right owed to all, regardless of your income. And the best way to secure that is to regulate the current market. So one of the things that my party wants to do is to introduce a self-obligation law, which means that if you buy a house or property, you have to actually live in the property. Another thing we want to do is actually introduce a permit for people who rent, so landlords. So if you're actually going to rent out houses, we know that you're registered. And a third thing that we also want to do is to make more agreements with developers about lowering the rent. That's something that doesn't happen a lot, and that leads to sky-high rises. So that's the first thing on solution of how to ensure more affordable homes. The second one, I think, is a very interesting one because it gets very technical. I'll explain it. If you have a big pie, we basically say 40, 40, 20. 40% we want for social housing. Why? Because as in Amsterdam currently, there are too few social homes, and the waiting list is currently 13 years, which is unbelievable, even just to say it out loud. But half of the people who live in Amsterdam actually are in that wealth bracket for a social home. So we think that's a huge priority. Then 40% for what they call the middle sector. It's a bit middle segment. It's a bit confusing, but those are people who earn about 2.5 times median income. And then the last 20% we say is for respect for, I would say very expensive homes, which we have way too many of. But that's how we want to build. And when it comes to how far you want to go, there's a lot of things we need from The Hague to do. Actually, my party today introduced a bill to prevent that social homes are being sold off without being replaced. So that I think is a very important thing, but there's a lot we can do in Amsterdam as well. So I named a few, I named many. I think our ambitions as the Labour Party are very high. We're very, very concerned because we feel like the city is already dramatically changing in its makeup. It's becoming increasingly a city for the wealthy and not for many, I would say the squeezed middle and the poor. That's something we really want to secure. And I think the best way is by regulating it as much as we can and by building more affordable homes and also by trying to lobby in The Hague for more stricter laws so we can actually end this crisis as soon as possible. So that's summarized.
2 minutes. Thank you very much. Again, we'll try to keep it to 2 minutes for this round. Kim, let's hear from Volt.
Thank you. So I also said in my introduction that we look at other European cities for solutions. So also if we look at the housing crisis, you see all over Europe quite similar problems. But there's one country that does it actually quite well. Is there someone here from Vienna? No. Okay, well then I will explain. What they do there is they have the Woonbouw initiative. And what that means is they have more like bigger social, like a bigger part of the social housing is really for people. Because here in the Netherlands, what my colleague already explained, is either social housing, you rent a house, or you buy a house. Currently, the waiting list for a social house is 13 years. And I don't know how many of you rent, but it's super high prices as well. So what we say, we take a bigger part of people that should actually be able to live in social housing, what they do also in Vienna. That works really, really well for the city. Furthermore, as second point, we say, I don't know about you guys, but I've lived here now for 6 years. I made a lot of friends, but a lot of friends also move away again. And that's because they cannot find proper housing. Because after a while, lots of people also want to have the decision to buy a house. But currently, that's almost impossible with the prices. So what we say is like invest more in the funds as a municipality to see how you can help first home buyers, to protect them from currently they hardly can buy a house because there's big, I don't know the word for that, sorry, but there's big parties that actually buy them in front of them. So they don't have a chance. So we say invest in that, have a fund as a local council that people can really also buy their first property here and that they don't move away from Amsterdam. And as third thing that I would like to mention, and we have way more, so you can also ask me later, but the first important thing, I also think I see some students here. I don't know about you guys, but it's also very difficult for the students in the city. And what we want to do, I myself, before I lived in Amsterdam, I lived in Groningen in the north of the Netherlands. And I worked for a company that organized student housing, international student housing. And what we did, that was in the city of Leeuwarden, and what we did, we worked together with all the universities, with the municipality, and with the company together to see how many students do we have, how many houses do we need, and together we fixed and solved the problem. We never had a problem that that students didn't have proper housing. So we want to bring that also here to Amsterdam. We have to work together. We have to invest in campuses. We did that as well. They can be sustainable, and there have to be a gap, because it's not normal that a student pays more than 600-700 euros for a room here in Amsterdam. That's only for the rich, and we have to put a cap on that for like maximum of 500 euros. So those are the 3 main points that we want to bring to the city.
There we go. 3 minutes. Thank you, Kim. Yes. And yes, Stijn, let's hear as well from VVD with the affordable housing, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm happy that Rutger can speak after me, so he can give me lots of compliments. So no, on a serious note, we think that we believe that people in Amsterdam, as I said in my opening statement, we believe that people want to buy a house. They want to be enabled to buy a house. They want to own a little bit of Amsterdam. They want to invest a little bit in Amsterdam. And they want to maybe save some money in their house. Now, that's what we believe most people want. They don't want to be stuck in a house which you rent for the rest of your life. So, I think there's 2 buttons you can press. On the one hand, you have the button, which is, I tried to Google translate it, the opkoopbescherming, which is something like, don't let Blackstone buy a whole street and then put it on the market for rent for 3,000 euros per month. So we should prohibit the Blackstones of this world to be able to buy houses like that and put them on the rental market. And the other thing we want to do as Liberal Party, we want to prohibit Airbnb in Amsterdam, because we feel like Airbnb ensures that houses leak away, so to say, from the middle segment where you want to keep them for people who live in Amsterdam. So that's the one button you can press by making sure that houses don't leak away from Amsterdam people. On the other hand, what we want to do, we want to build 10,000 houses every year, of which 50% should be houses you can buy, and they must be like in a segment between 300,000 euros and 500,000 euros.
That's price, not salary, right? Just checking, sorry.
Is that your salary?
No. No, you were very specific. I meant to give you that compliment. You already answered one of the questions in the so well done. No, continue, sorry.
No worries. Yeah. Because we believe that if you make sure that no houses leak away and you invest in creating more and more affordable houses to buy for Amsterdam people, more and more people with jobs like being a police officer are enabled to in turn buy a house for themselves, because that's what people in the end want.
Thank you. Okay, that was Stijn. Well done. And short, under 2 minutes. 2 minutes for Rutger and Reinier, please. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
Stijn, you were challenging me a little bit, but I'm not going to criticize you or the VVD. I'm not going to do that. I think that housing is the main issue for a lot of people. I have to worry about how my children will be able to live in this city, as well as a lot of people are wondering how to live in this city. We have built like 29,000 houses the last 4 years. And yes, I would have wished that more of these houses were purely affordable. But I think that the only thing that we can do is build, and I think that the market, Reinier is way more optimistic than I am, about 7,000 to 8,000 houses a year. If you can only build 7,000 to 8,000 houses a year, they should be affordable. They should be for people with lower incomes or middle incomes. Because I don't think that we need more houses to be bought or houses to be sold. Because what happens is that the average housing price in Amsterdam is like 600,000 euros. If there's a house and it's even built in a lower price category, within a year or within 2 years, there will be speculation on the housing market. They will be sold away, there will be speculation on it, and we cannot control it anymore. So what I think is that we need strong and firm regulation in maximum renting prices. We need strong and firm regulation in that people cannot own even more houses than one that they can live in. And I think that in the end, and of course we need the national government to help us with this, but what we need is more affordable housing, because housing is a right and it's not a means of production. It's not an asset to get wealthy on. It's something that as a state, as a city council, we should provide to our people. And of course, I like the example of Vienna, because 80% of the housing, of the rental market in Vienna is local government owned. This is one of the points that's also in our party program. Let's make it happen. But I'm quite curious. Okay, I shouldn't be asking those guys questions. We're not going to debate on that.
Good.
I'm strong in favor of a very municipality-regulated housing market, because housing isn't a market. It's something that's a basic right for everyone.
Thank you. D66. D66.
Thank you, Greg. Well, I think the most political differences are on the views on the housing market. So if you walk away tonight and you decide to read one thing on all these parties, read about the housing market, because we do differ. I think some parties like to build more social housing. Some parties like to build more houses you can buy as an owner. And for D66, it's a focus on the middle incomes, because I really think that we see that middle incomes leave the city and cannot be put on a waiting list for social housing, can definitely not afford to buy a house, and are forced to leave the city, go away from their friends, from their sporting club, maybe from work because they have to move too far. And if you realize that only 1 in 8 of the homes in Amsterdam is affordable for middle income, we really have to fix the city. Really make sure it's not broken between lower incomes and the rich, but you need that middle segment to make sure you have the soul of the city to restore the DNA of Amsterdam. So that's what D66 wants to do. From the 9,000 houses we built, we're going to make sure at least half is affordable for those middle incomes. And the second thing we really like to do is regulate the market. I think everybody knows that paying 1,600 euros rent a month is insane. So we do need to regulate the rental market to make sure you can just be able to rent a normal and affordable house, especially as a middle income. But we also need to put a taxation on leaving your property empty to make sure those 40.
We agree on that.
Yeah, we all agree on that. That's true. But there are about 5,000 homes left empty by big real estate parties as Blackstone, but also by small owners who own like 4 or 5 or 6 houses. We have to make sure it's impossible to buy a house if you are not willing to live there. And the third thing is we have a real big mismatch on the housing market in Amsterdam. There are people who live way too small and pay way too much, and you'd like them to move to a bigger house and pay less, while there are elderly Amsterdammers who, well, have seen their kids leave and live in kind of a big home, maybe never go to the attic, and we want to support them to move to a different home, maybe a senior housing opportunity where they're going to be able to leave their home open for the next family. So, to sum it up, we need to build more than we've ever done, focused on the middle incomes. We need to regulate the market with every power we have, and we have to make sure people are willing to move to leave houses empty for new homeowners. Thank you.
There we go. So 5 different perspectives. As we're saying, it's not a huge debate, and thank you guys for that. If you like, again, you can go to the Stemwijzer, and that's just one of the options. Stemwijzer has specifics about these different policy proposals, and also per dagdeel, stadsdeel and district as well. So, for example, houses should only be allowed to stay empty for how long? And sometimes there's a difference on that. So you can find yeah, you can find that out online. But for right now, we have time for a couple questions before we move on to topic 2, which will also affect how much can you build before we bump into sustainability issues, for example. So, all right, do we have a question about housing? We'll try to go to, this one first.
Hi.
What's your name?
I'd like to ask if you have any particular views on housing for students in Amsterdam.
Okay. And,
any of you? I mean, particularly the two leading parties, but I'm the mother of a student in Amsterdam, and the situation seems to be absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
There are rules about illegal housing, registration, maximum rents, but they're not being enforced.
So rules not being enforced is also an interesting one. And should we point out as well that, there are a couple of parties who are, Reinier, and are representing two parties who are in the, also, PvdA is also in the, the coalition. For, okay.
For the horse race.
Yes. No, not for the horse race. I'm just saying who's represented currently in city council. It's VVD is not in city council, Volt not in city council currently, but anyway. So who would like to answer the question about student housing specifically, Reinier?
I'll start. It's really something I worry about. I think the first thing we have to do is make sure the tight rules of living together are eased a bit. Now you can live together with only 2 persons to share a flat. I think we have to bump it up to 3, which will give us about 10,000 extra rooms. Of course, we have to make sure they're affordable, because what you don't want if you loosen the rules that they go for, the crazy prices we see in Amsterdam now. But we also need to be a bit more creative with building. You can now build what we call flexible housing. They come out of the factory, and you can put them down in about a week if they come out of the factory. And I'm quite sure we have the opportunity for 5,000 to 6,000 houses on land. And there's also the opportunity to put those houses on water. Well, everybody who knows Amsterdam a bit can see loads of spots of water. And I'm quite sure we can build affordable student housing there. So we need to build more, and we need to ease the regulation. And of course, we have to regulate to make it affordable.
Thank you. Now, hold on. A couple of house rules. I misspoke a moment ago. I meant to say that there are parties here who are in the governing coalition currently. So yes, GroenLinks, D66, PvdA, Labour, PvdA are in the current ruling coalition, the College van BMW in Amsterdam City Council. So Volt is not in City Council. VVD very much yes in City Council, but not in the ruling coalition currently.
Much.
So there. Okay. Am I saying this right? Okay. So next up, thank you for this. If you wish to chime in, you can. We are hoping to get 1 minute each for these question and answer moments, and then we'll get to your question there. Kim, you already did mention it. That was good, but does anyone else want to jump in? Okay. Well, let's move on to a different question. Thank you. And we have one who was... go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I hear all this great talk about building new houses and social housing, all that great stuff, but I hear one topic that is really overlooked, and that is access to capital and credit. And I know this might not be a municipal issue, but I was just wondering what your parties are willing and able to do on this in the next 4 years, because I really think these big investors and also personal investors have access to money much more quickly than us normal folks.
The banks, the hypotheken, and like that. Is there anything that we can do on the local level, Rutger?
No, I think that this is something on the national level. And what we try to do as city is to ban these investors. And what we try to do is to ban the influx of external capital in buying all these houses and renting them out. But what you were talking about is also the national rules for getting a mortgage. And of course, the flexibilization of the labor market has made it way more complicated to get a mortgage. And you have to bring out your own money. And this is something that we, I think, that all parties agree that we should work on together. But from the point of view of the Dutch Greens, I think that the regulation of the housing market is also should go that far that as a municipality we should buy houses of, for example, the corporaties, so that we can be able to distribute them throughout the city. Because what we see is that this market isn't functioning at all. So I think that the municipality should take this role as even divider and provider of houses, because mortgages are way out of line, and if you're young, have a flexible contract, you don't have a lot of cash to bring in, it's impossible even to get in the housing market, left alone that houses are 600,000 average.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, that would be a big change. We have one question that was waiting, and then we have to move on, I'm afraid. Do we have one? Yeah, go ahead.
I know you spoke a lot about like being able to like afford a place, like afford and to buy like a place.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, for like a lot of expats and like a lot of people coming from abroad, just finding like a place to like rent and live at like an affordable price, and that is not like a small room, is already like a challenge. So my question is, do you have any plans to like incite owners to rent and to like create shared like flats instead of like renting to like one person, basically?
Interesting. So if I can sum up, it seems like, can we do something maybe on a fast track, not just about new places coming on the market, but for existing homeowners to maybe be incentivized to take that spare room or spare flat and share that now. Does that sound right? Yes. Who would like to answer that one? 1 minute, please.
Well, definitely. I'll try to be a bit shorter. I think you have to ease the rules there to make it easier for homeowners to rent out their rooms to more persons. But second of all, you have some complicated Dutch ruling where you get got on your social security, on your social, how do you say, bijstand?
Yeah, social benefits.
Social benefits.
Yeah,
if you take somebody in your home, and I think it's really important to cut those things out, so people are willing to live together more. I think it helps.
That's national government legislation, which makes it quite complicated to change that.
When we were talking about regulating the market, that's why we're talking about regulating the market when it comes to rent, because I think even if we build more homes, that won't be enough. We have to, all the existing homes are there that are being kept empty, as Reinier said earlier. There are homes empty in the city, like 5,000 homes, or there are people, private landlords, who are keeping really, really high prices for people who can't afford because they think they can make a profit of it. That's why we're trying to introduce all these regulations on a local level, things that we can do now, things we've already done, to make sure that a lot more homes become available and free, and that we can lower those rents. And I think one thing actually that hasn't been mentioned as well, like there was this popularity all across Europe of letting homes for tourists, for example, Airbnb, as you know. There's been a huge problem in the city as well, let alone for the neighborhoods and livelihood in neighborhoods. So what we said is people have to register if they want to actually rent out their homes for Airbnb and pursue that. And we saw almost a year after introducing that registration duty that 70% of the homes that normally were rented out, they suddenly became free again. So that's like a very effective local measure that we did, helped and supported by the national law, that I think actually helped to free up more homes. So a lot of stuff that we mentioned is quite technical, but all of them are aimed at the same game, like trying to get the current housing market, which is totally crazy and mental, but trying to regulate the market so we can make more homes available, so we can control the prices, so more people, not just people on lower income, so people like you can rent a home and don't have to spend more than 40% of their income on rent. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we definitely can work on as well.
There we have it. I'm going to move on to topic number 2. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your questions. And again, if your question was not answered just now, I believe we have some candidates who are available afterward at the bar. All right. They will talk for a drink. Moving on. Slide next is topic number 2, and that is sustainability. I'm sure we'll breeze through this one quickly. Climate and sustainability. How will you confront the climate crisis responsibly and practically, again, at the local level and the national level? Well, that's a separate thing for now. Also, how ambitious should the city be with its targets? We're talking specifically about cars, fossil fuels, and also this thing called the circular economy. And perhaps you may have read about the circular economy, if I may. Circular economy is not just like, oh, zero waste mentality and we're going to, compost our veggies. I believe it's more of an economic model that Amsterdam is somewhat unique in pioneering. So if you would like to chat about that, shall we start just from left to right this time, and 2 minutes on the clock for each of the candidates. What would you like to do for sustainability? Rutger from GroenLinks.
I think there's no time to lose. I think that we have like 8, maybe 10 years before we can stop climate change. And that means that we should have every possibility. We should take every measurement that we can to fight climate change. And our national government is failing us. Our national government has been low on being innovative. And now there are talks about nuclear energy and stuff like that. And I think that the war in the Ukraine shows us that the dependence on fossil fuel and the dependence on oil and Russian gas should end. And we cannot get the gas from the people from Groningen. We should invest in sustainable energy. And that's why we have, as city board, we increased the number of solar panels by five times. The CO2 reduction with 15%. We have started to make the city center car-free. And I think that we need wind on land, wind on sea, solar energy. We need isolation, but we need everything, even biomass. And I think there's no time to lose. And especially, we should make sure that this transition towards sustainable energy is a just transition. Because what we've seen, we see energy poverty, we see rising inflation, and if we don't succeed to make sure that people with the lower incomes also benefit from climate subsidies, then this whole transition will fail. And that's why it's crucial that not only the national government, but also the local government invests in people who need it the most. Because the transition will be just, or there will be no transition. But there's no time to lose, and we need every asset to fight climate change, because that is the main challenge that we face for the future of our planet.
Thank you, Rutger. 2 minutes, well done. Let me just clarify before you begin. There's a term that's going to come up a lot, and that's the isolation. In Dutch, that is isolatie. Let's call it insulation. No, just so we know, isolation, it makes us all think COVID, and it's, but no, there are trucks going around town saying isolation van, and that means they are there to provide insulation for the very old, creaky, drafty homes in Amsterdam, and that cannot happen soon enough as well. Okay, next up, Reinier from D66.
Well, I think we all know that climate change is a big threat, not only to Amsterdam, but to the whole world. But I'm quite optimistic that Amsterdam can lead the way to getting a way out of this crisis. And we've done loads. The last 4 years as city government, we invested 150 million in making sure the houses are ready to be put off gas, which is really important, especially now because, we're buying that gas from a dictator who's waging war on the poor people of Ukraine. But also we made sure we put on solar panels on roofs. We started with insulation, but it's all not enough to save Amsterdam from climate change. And it's really do or die. I cannot stress it enough. And for me, it's also a very personal subject. My son is 2.5 years old, and I'm quite sure he'll ask me in 10 years what I have done to make sure Amsterdam can survive, and I'm really hoping I don't have to tell him that instead of a car, a boat is waiting outside to bring him to school. So we'll do everything that is needed. We need wind on land, we need more solar panels, we need to make sure no roof is unused in the coming years, but also we need to make agreements with big enterprises in Amsterdam. We need the 20 biggest companies that are the most dirty to help us innovate us out of this crisis. We've got a harbor that can function as a big hub for the circular economy, making sure we don't throw our resources away but reuse them again. And all in all, we have to make sure there are more international trains so we can, fly less and less from Schiphol.
Okay, thank you. D66. Let's hear from Labour PvdA. 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, well, maybe it can be 1 minute because everything that Reinier Rutger said actually is something my party also has worked on the coalition. And I would say a big compliment, especially to the Greens, because they've really helped push us forward this agenda, which means that Amsterdam has one of the most ambitious climate plans, I think one of the whole Netherlands almost. So let me just highlight 2 things that haven't been mentioned here that I think are really important. I mentioned in my introduction as well, energy poverty. It's a huge problem also in our city. Like 1 in 3 homes in Amsterdam are badly insulated. So there are people whose houses are drafty, they have fungus, they are paying now triple their energy bills, they can't afford it. And these homes are often situated in some of the poorest areas in our city, so in the Zuidoost, in Noord, and also in New West. So one of the things that my party really wants to do, because we think the climate crisis is actually one of the hugest threats facing our city, but we also think it's an opportunity to insulate these homes as quickly as possible. We want to have one of the biggest insulation programs this country might have seen, I think, for a city. We want to start in those areas where the poorest areas of our city, where the least insulated homes are. We want to isolate them. We want to encourage landlords to make those homes more green. We want to buy collectively green. There's a lot of plans we want to do on that. The second thing I think is also important to mention is green mobility. I think Amsterdam is also a city that does a lot of innovation when it comes to green mobility. We want to accelerate that even further. And one of the things we also want to do is to encourage more people to use public transport. Here again, we see the problem of people who can't afford, when they live in Noord, Zuid or Zuidoost, to come to the city center. So one of the things my party says is we want to make that free for them, public transport, so they can easily come to city center, and encourage them to use public how do you call it again?
Public transport.
Public transport again,
yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So those are 2 things I just want to add to what Rutger and Reinier said. But yeah, I think this is something actually a lot of parties in Amsterdam agree on. So we really want to accelerate that further, and hopefully that we can meet our climate goals and targets.
Thank you, PvdA. That was Labour. Volt, interested to hear, what does Volt want to do with sustainability in Amsterdam?
Yeah, I already said it in my introduction. It's one of our main key points, but I think that's for all of us. We all know the facts. Time is up, and in my daily life, I work for Doctors Without Borders, and actually what I see there is devastating. We work in countries where you already see like drought, you see already like diseases popping up because of climate change. We already see climate refugees, and what we actually do here, we need to act. We really need to act as Amsterdam, we need to act as the Netherlands, we need to act as the European Union. Because what it is that it's like a death sentence to some of these countries because they're below sea level, but it's also a death sentence to the people of Amsterdam, to our future, because we also, mind you, below sea level. So we also believe that I think most of the things are already mentioned here. So we think that we need to really, that energy transition, need to fast track that by solar panels, but also windmills. At the same time, we also think we need to look at climate adaptation as a city. Amsterdam is not green enough. And again, if we look at other cities in Europe, for example, Madrid, we see that they have built a green road, which we also want to do here, because we all know that like trees and plants also absorb the CO2. So what we want to do in Amsterdam is we want to invest in a green gallery, which connects the city center with parts of Amsterdam. And at the same time, we really want to invest in green roofs. Because what I said again, time is up. We all know the facts, and we need to act now, not yesterday.
Thank you, Volt. 2 minutes for VVD. Stijn, on sustainability, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a bit of more of the same. I'm sorry, guys, but I'll highlight a couple of points I think are relevant for the Liberal Party. And I'm on my part very happy that our party, which I think took some time to realize that this is a serious topic we need to deal with, and I'm very happy that the VVD has been addressing it on a nationwide level in the most recent coalitieakkoord.
Coalition accord? That's fine. The
Coalition
national
agreement.
Coalition agreement, yeah.
There's been made 35 billion euros available for the energy transition and for climate in the Netherlands. So I think that's a really good thing. It took us some time, but I think we're getting there. So I agree with lots of the points my colleagues have made. We want to start a fund to insulate houses here in Amsterdam with public and privately funded money, so you can pre-fund the things you need to do to insulate the houses, and you can speed up the process. We want to up our ambition for solar panels as well on the privately owned houses, as on the bigger roofs from the IKEA and companies in the harbor, etc. We want to use the harbor as a place where you can have like a hydrogen hub. And I can go on, and I think we agree on lots of these things. I can say that the VVD doesn't want windmills outside the harbor. That's, I think, a nuanced difference because.
Yeah.
Volt same.
Oh, well, Volt ook. And because we believe that there are too great health hazards or damage to nature when you put them in a green or next to a house. But that's, I think, a nuanced difference. And last point I wanted to make is I think it's really important to invest in our energy infrastructure for charging electric cars. You see that in the future cars will start parking below ground in garages more and more and less above ground. So we need to make sure that in parking garages under the apartment buildings or public garages that there's enough infrastructure for cars to charge their batteries. So I think that's another one more practical, important point for us to address.
Interesting. Great. Yes, thank you. 2 minutes from each party. And can we get a bit more specific, or who would like to ask a question at this point? And we have a couple already.
Hi, thank you. I wasn't clear on why the wind turbines outside the harbor, that seems to be the main difference, honestly, because a lot of points you kind of share.
Yes.
So if you could expand a little bit on that, I'm trying to understand what are the pros and cons. You see them at least.
Yeah. Again, wind turbines, do we put them only in the harbor area, or can we reiterate?
Yeah. Well, I think that we have, as a city council, we have decided that we need windmills within the city, that we need it in the transition. What we've said is that we're talking about 17 windmills. What we've said is that half of them can be in the Western Harbor sphere, where we already have windmills. But it's inevitable that we also need mills on land. What we have done is that we have investigated search areas where they might come. And of course, I think that every party, also my party, who states that wind on land is inevitable, will take health risk into account. But we're not going to say that it can be only in the harbor, because it limits the number of mills that you can put there. It's going to be, I think, 8 or 9 on a max, and there are two parties who are saying no, they should only be in the harbor. And what we see is that the upbringing of this energy of only these mills in the harbor is too low for the transition that we need. And I think that also one major difference is the way that you look at mobility, like cars in the city center. As Greens, we would very much like to ban cars from the city center, because we think that it's not a modern way of mobility, and it's way too bad for the air pollution. And I think there might be a difference on how you see Schiphol Airport. If you feel that Schiphol should grow, which I totally don't agree with, or think that it should stay on the same pace, or should have less flights.
I hope that answers your question. Yes. Can we move on? We have time for 1 or 2 more. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Greg mentioned this. The houses in Amsterdam are very, very old and drafty. I'm wondering when the Building Planning Permission Services might be joining the 21st century. It's impossible to double glaze your house if you've got a protected view. Huge amounts of houses have got one. When are you going to help people insulate their houses properly, which is the first step before you even think about generating the energy?
Well, thank you. I think we put out a fund of 10 million, which is a good start, but not enough. So we have to definitely increase that and make sure homeowners as well as renters can get a good offer on how to do it, because you need, an undertaking. Is it called an undertaker? I think so.
A contractor.
A contractor, thank you.
Undertaker's different.
Undertaker is for a funeral. That's what I was thinking. Okay, you need a contractor, you need personnel, but you also need to make sure that some regulations are cut. In most monumental buildings, you cannot even put in double glass. Well, those things, are something from days in the past, if I might say. Thank you.
Maybe one thing to add on that, because that's maybe more long-term, but one huge problem that we also foresee as Labour Party is we have a huge workforce shortage. So all the technicians, the people who actually have to help us, meet our climate goals, we can't find them. There's a huge shortage. So one of the things we want to do is also invest in more internships, get people more guided, seduced to do these kind of jobs. But especially in Amsterdam, we have a huge problem with that. So I think that's also another important detail to add, because I think that could really help us speed that up.
Yeah. If it helps for anyone, to and that point, I think the average age for glaziers or electricians is something like 40s or 50s. So there are not enough people entering that field. The conventional wisdom of the higher the education level, the higher the salary, is not always true. So good luck. We need more progress there. Yeah, one more question and just 1 minute answers, please.
What would the council be doing to support homeowners that wanted to switch from gas to heat pumps?
Yeah.
You mentioned solar panels, but there are probably other ways of getting off gas and being more efficient in heating homes and using the available power. Thank you.
Okay, so the gas heating as well as warmtepomps or heat pumps and or hybrid. Yes?
I'll try to answer short. We have in our program that every homeowner gets an offer how to get off gas and insulate their homes in 3 to 4 years, so you know what you have to do.
3 to 4 years?
Well, it's...
Not 34, I didn't hear that.
3 to 4, because it's 450,000 houses in Amsterdam, so it's going to take us a bit of time. Of course, you can do it yourself, but otherwise we're going to help.
Okay.
But there are already a lot of arrangements. Maybe at the bar I can exchange some information, because there are a lot of arrangements that can be made. I'm not quite sure if it's always a pump or any other means of energy. But we can talk about it later.
Yeah, and there's in Amsterdam we have energy coaches, so to say, which the municipality offers, who go by house to house, or you can make an appointment and they can tell you all about what's the possibilities or the not the possibilities.
Are there English-speaking energy coaches?
Yeah.
Well, that's
I'm not sure.
I actually think that's but I think that's a really good point, because we'll talk about it a bit more later in inclusivity. But I think a lot of things exist, but people don't know about or find it very difficult to find information about this. So I think your question actually highlights this, because I think this is one of the things that's been quite advertised, that it's out there, you can find help, and yeah.
Okay. Moving on, topic number 3. Are we there yet? Okay. Inclusivity as well as arts and culture. Amsterdam is famous for its inclusivity and for being a world-class city in the arts, culture, and nightlife. So, here are a couple questions in one. How will you ensure that the city grows its reputation, protecting minority voices, and ensuring cultural venues also benefit all neighborhoods, as well as both Dutch and international residents, right? It's a lot that we packed in there, but can we just start reverso style? We'll start with Stijn from VVD this time, and how would you like to address inclusivity / arts and culture?
Yes, it's a lot to process in 2 minutes, so I'm going to, I think, choose a topic which is important to me. I've lived in Amsterdam, I think, everywhere by now, and as I said, I live around the corner, so I love like the DNA, which is the diversity of Amsterdam. When you walk outside, everything's different, everyone's different. That's super cool. But I'll choose one topic which is to me important, and I'm very proud of it is that in Amsterdam we have the Pride Week, where people from the this is very difficult in English, the LGBTIQ plus community,
yes,
mouthful also in the Netherlands, is thriving, and it has its own week in Amsterdam, and they celebrate, I think most of you know it, they celebrate the fact that you can love wherever you want to love and be wherever you want to be, with all kinds of cultural festivities, movies, films, of course also the Canal Day, which is by now I think widely known, and I think that's something as Amsterdam we should be very proud of, that's something like we have here, and we can make everybody celebrate love whoever you want to love, and I really like that.
Thank you. 2 minutes there, and let's take a quick drink break. Go ahead. Kim from Volt, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I also thought it was a lot of to pack in this slide. But I want to focus on something that I was already mentioning in my beginning speech or like short statement. And that's we as Volt stand for also connection between the people of Amsterdam and politics and the people, but also for trust, building trust back into politics, and also trusting also the citizens of Amsterdam. And how we want to do that, and it's something that already started here in Amsterdam once, but we see it all over Europe, and that's building more, and I looked it up on Google, so I hope I say it right, it's citizen assemblies. In Dutch it's burgerberaden. So that means that we want to have, with some of the topics that we have, and you could, for example, think of something that is quite current in debate, is what are we going to do with the Wallen, the red light district. This is something that we also want to ask the people of Amsterdam. So what we want to do is we want to organize more of these, what did I say? Burgerberaden, citizen assemblies, thank you. It's not really in my mind yet in English. We want to organize more of those. And what it does is that you really bring back more of the citizens to a decision-making in Amsterdam. And one of the things that we've also seen is that not everyone participates in politics. And we really think it's important that people do that. And this is one of the tools that we can use. And we see it a lot. One of the examples that I see in Europe, and that's really close to my heart, was the abortion topic in Ireland. They used citizen participation there to really, because you had one group of politics that said, no, we don't want that. The other one said yes. And what they did is they said, okay, let's solve this with a burgerberaad, which is very different as what we've seen, for example, with the referendum in Brexit. So where you really see that you set up two groups to each other. So we think also politics needs innovation, and for the last 200 years we've done it the same. We need to look at different ways how we can really get people to the politics and also politics to the people, because we believe if you trust the people in making decisions, you also get the trust back.
Thank you. That was Volt. Let's hear from Labour PvdA. Yes, Fatia?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the creative industry sector. It's a huge sector here in Amsterdam. It's about 10% of our jobs. And they've been in really huge crisis, of course, the corona pandemic, because everything was closed. A lot of people find it very difficult to continue with their jobs. They even left the sector. It's something that I'm personally also passionate about, because I used to work in the sector myself, and I know how hard it is to get by if you're a creative person. So one of the things that I'm very happy that also this coalition has done, we've created an emergency plan for the sector during the corona pandemic to ensure that many people as possible can keep their jobs, but also to support accessibility for culture. But I think there are a few more things that we need to do now we're going out of this crisis. One thing is that my party wants to invest in more creative hotspots, so places where people can actually come together and share housing, but also share space, share ideas, build more ideas in an easy, accessible way. I think we have a few of them in the city that are very successful. We want to build them further. The second one is we have a lot of funds in the city, culture subsidies, but people find them a bit difficult to access, or take a lot of time, or they even hire people to do the subsidy application for them. We want to simplify those, and we want to expand the funding. And a third thing, I think, is which I'm very passionate about, we want to invest in culture education. So every child, a student in the city can access culture free in the city. It's something that's really hard because we have these funds, but a lot of people don't find their ways. But we we want to make it possible if you are interested in music or you never heard about music, you're acquainted with it. So you want to expand that in the neighborhood centers, but also make them more accessible at schools. There's a plan that we just introduced, which is a culture coaches, where each, like 30 schools now, look at Rutger, are getting a culture coach, where they look with the school to how to expand the culture curriculum. But I think that's really important and beautiful, because I think in a city as Amsterdam, where sometimes you feel society's only focused on, maths and languages and stuff that they feel like you can, do prestige, we think actually culture is such an important thing about our city that everyone should have that from the beginning and get acquainted with it, regardless of where you come from and how much money you have. So that's another thing we want to invest in.
Thank you, Labour, with your 2 minutes. Moving on, D66, D66, Reinier, what do you think?
Well, for me, I chose the same topic, the arts, culture, and nightlife. I think I own a few bars myself, so I know how hard people have struggled, and especially in the cultural sector, things have been really tough. So the first thing we need to do is get the city back on track and invest in cultural hotspots, cultural places, to make sure they can survive the coming 2 to 3 years. That's one really important thing. And we have to ease some regulations. Now it's really hard to get a permit for if you do a small cultural event until 250 people. I think we have to make the permits free and make sure it's not such a big hassle to get the permit, which takes you now about, at least 2-3 work days, and you have to, admit it 10 weeks before. Also like to invest in cultural hotspots where artists can work together, mingle with other artists, also where they can live, so housing is still affordable for those artists in Amsterdam. And we'd like to support the nightlife, make sure, just like in Berlin, the clubs are part of our cultural assets. I think that's really important, and invest in festivals that give so much joy to Amsterdammers.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, D66. And GroenLinks, how would you like to address inclusivity plus arts and culture?
Well, I'm an historian. Hey, you can even become a deputy mayor while being a historian. But I think that migration is key in the history of Amsterdam. And if you look at the success of Amsterdam, migration is the only stable thing that happened.
Yeah.
The DNA of Amsterdam is migration. And I think that the only reason that we have this vibrant and flourishing life in Amsterdam is because of migration. And I think that we have to cherish all those voices in the city. And I think that we have to amplify even more voices in the city. Because a lot of voices aren't heard that much, and a lot of voices should be amplified to see the complete richness of the city. And what we have to do is not only to combat racism and discrimination in which form it comes, but also try to amplify voices that aren't heard that loud. And this is not only something for the city board or the municipality, but also for the cultural life. And I think that, for example, you as internationals contribute to our cultural life on a very vast way. And we don't see or cherish that enough. Amsterdam is a migration city, and the only way that Amsterdam can stay an open and tolerant city is that we not only embrace migration instead of right-wing national politics that only try to put people up against each other, but be open and easy about it and amplify not only your own voice, but the voice of all the other peoples that are in this city. Because we're not a solo singer, we're a choir.
Thank you to GroenLinks as well. Well, we have a chance for any follow-up questions. Some Q&A, and we have a bunch already going. Okay, so go ahead. Yes, you can ask her a question.
Thank you so much. So we talked about inclusivity, arts and culture. Specifically talking about inclusivity, being an expat who's just like 59 days into Amsterdam right now. In theory, I did hear a lot about the spirit of Amsterdam and what's been done in the past. Can you guys just lay out just top 3 things in your mind that will make Amsterdam a more inclusive place? Of course it is right now, but going further to improve that even more.
Yeah, that's great. So if anyone would like to just, a couple of examples, go ahead. What do you want to do next?
Well, I am deputy mayor on diversity and social inclusion. So one of the things that we have done as city board is to make sure that we improve the representation within our own city ranks. Because what we've seen is that, for example, the function of direction, the higher management functions, the male-female balance was quite okay. But there wasn't any representation of people with, let's say, a migrant background. So we have this program with fixed results that has to improve the representation of people. This is one thing. And the other thing is that we have a strong, a large approach on fighting racism and discrimination on the labor market. This is a huge program which is about combating racism and discrimination, but also to you not only need a stick to punish employers, but you also need a carrot to help them to be more inclusive. So this program is quite revolutionary in the Dutch context, and I think it's something to be proud of. But also within the Dutch police, there's this it's called roze in blauw, pink in blue, which is not an initiative of the municipality. What is an initiative of the Dutch police, which is a special unit when people from the LHBTIQ plus community face any form of aggression or discrimination, they can be helped. Stijn was also talking about it. Yeah. This is something as municipality that we supported and that we try to help. And these are three concrete things that I'm very proud of.
That they have done. Any more ideas for what you want to do next? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we also have to look at some new things. So as Volt, one thing we say for newcomers in the city, we really want to set up a buddy system. So you also learn the language quicker. And from my knowledge, so again, I work for Doctors Without Borders and I work with a lot of people that come from overseas. And in the beginning, it's quite difficult. They want to learn the language, they want to learn English, but the problem is, they want to learn Dutch, sorry. But the problem is that a lot of these official papers come in Dutch. So I've helped a lot of my friends with their taxes and stuff like this. And even, we spoke about it was a joke in the beginning, but even this voting, which is so vital also for the people that come here, that even comes in Dutch. And it's not that people don't want to learn the language. They want to. Often I hear from my friends, I really want to learn Dutch. But everyone here in Amsterdam speaks English back to me. So I think we also really need to focus more on the language to make that more available for people, for newcomers, also for people that don't speak Dutch, like in the beginning, very well. So these are two concrete things I think we really need to focus on to make it more inclusive also for that group of people, which is a big group of people because 19% of the city is international.
Yes. En learning Dutch. Het is het is niet makkelijk, maar het is niet onmogelijk.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. Yeah. Maybe one concrete measure and also one reassurance, because I think there are a lot of programs actually in the city to help people to team them up with Amsterdammers, but also volunteers to help learn the language. I'm happy to talk with you, also the bar, to get you acquainted with something of interest, anyone in the hall. There's one thing I want to add to what Reinier said that I think is a huge problem, especially for expats and people come to the city, and that's actually discrimination on the housing market, but also when people rent homes. I've heard so many stories of people saying, oh, I've written an email, written a letter, I didn't hear anything back. Or when they show up, and even though they have the money or the wallet to actually afford it, they're like, oh, sorry, there's something wrong, or they made up rules where they say, oh, you have to pay 3 times the deposit, those kind of things. So one of the things that my party wants to do is to introduce mystery guests. So they want to actually... They also want to do it, but I'll highlight it out.
Sorry.
We want to introduce mystery guests, but we also want to increase enforcement, because what we've noticed as well, that when people actually complain about these issues, the capacity is so low at our discrimination authorities, both with the police, that they don't pick up on these signals quickly enough. So we want to use more mystery guests, but we also want to enforce and strengthen the police, but also our discrimination sort of organization we have in Amsterdam, so that there's a follow-up to these signals. But I think it's a huge problem. I hear it so many times. So that's, I think, a really big part we could do to make it more fair and more inclusive for people who come to our city and want to live here.
Can I take another question? Yes. And okay, we are going to go to this side. Yeah, go ahead.
We got one here.
Yeah.
Hello, guys. Thank you, first of all, for doing this. I have so many questions, but here I am asking about this one. I'm French, and in France, prostitution is outlawed, and these populations are pushed further out of city centers and becoming more and more vulnerable. I have myself some sex worker friends here in the Netherlands. I'm curious, one of you mentioned, I believe it was Volt. I'm sorry, I forget your name.
Kim.
Kim Top. Nice to meet you. You mentioned the red light district. I'm just curious, in general, what the perspective is for populations that might become more vulnerable, but can be also at the core of a very controversial topic such as this one. Just curious about your views on this. Thank you.
Red light district is a ongoing
It's a hot topic
in
actually.
Amsterdam. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, and there's different views on it, and I hope I understand your question right. But currently, there's like the view of like, should we actually keep it? So there's parties, they say, should we keep it, or should we move it away, or should we like move it to another place, like make it a different center? What we say as Volt for now, we said we keep it where it is. We spoke with those sex workers working at the red light district. However, I also think it needs a wider debate, and I also named it already in my example of, now I forgot again, the Burgerraad. I think it needs a really bigger discussion amongst the people of Amsterdam. I think we need a broader view on that because it touches on so many things. And we cannot just say, I think, as politics, that we say we're going to move it there. And you see already there's a lot of people in Amsterdam that are not happy about that, they're protesting about that. So I really think this is one of those topics that we can really put in that Burgerberaad, where we can really like have a bigger, broader view of the citizens of Amsterdam to see what do we actually want with the red light district. Do we want to keep it there? Do we want to move it away? Or what is it that we want?
Anyone else?
Maybe just to correct something very slightly. There is a really big topic. Kim is right on that. But actually, we're already planning to consult people in the city. It's a huge, important topic. I think two things on that from the perspective of my party. We think sex workers have rights, and we think they should be protected. A lot of things that we've seen, especially people who who are living in very precarious situations, or women who don't want to go to the police or housing because they're afraid they'll be deported. Like it's a very complex situation, and we're trying to target that. One of the things that we said is, okay, well, first what we need to do is to look at, for example, the erotic center. And what that means is that while we want to also move the red light district parts of the prostitution and sex work actually away, we're going to investigate certain areas in the city where we can possibly move that to guarantee sex workers' rights, but also to make it less doomy, because we think it's, I mean, if you want to visit a sex worker, prostitution, still in our view in the city of Amsterdam, you should do, but we want it to be fair. We don't want you to misuse or mistreat people. And we want to have oversight, because a lot of things what happens when it comes to sex worker prostitution, we don't have the oversight if something happens or something goes wrong. And something I personally feel passionate about, if I often walk through the red light district, some things I can't tackle, but I almost want to tackle, is you have a lot of tourists who come there and who hiss and sis at the women, and make fun and make jokes. I don't like the look of that in my city. I think it's disrespectful. That's another thing I think also in the back of my mind where we're looking at. But it is a huge topic. It's something we actually want to engage a lot of people in the city with. And I think it's right that some people say, well, I feel really concerned about it. But that's something that we as a city council take really seriously. I think it's actually on the debate for the first city council meeting when the new city council installed. So it's huge on our list. And I want to thank you also for putting this up, because it's a minority group that often is forgotten, but I think should really be protected in our city. So.
And beyond that, there's some agreement. Thank you. Sorry, we have time for, I don't know, is there one more question that needs to happen? Or we can also go to the drinks and go ahead. Yes, please.
Yeah, hi. I think we heard a lot of interesting proposals from each of you on all three topics tonight. What I couldn't help to notice is they are mostly on the spending side, so they will require more spending. So my question is, if you have to name the single most important source of funding for your policies, being as specific as you can, which is it?
So, source of funding. It sounds like this is actually a perfect bridge to closing statements. So we're going to do that next. But if you want to jump in, again, a lot of spending is involved. Where is it coming from? Yeah.
From my point of view, I think that we should have paid parking throughout the whole city. Because from my point of view, the claim that cars have on our public space is way too high. And if you look at the tariffs for incoming people who don't live here, they are on their max, I think. But still, a permit is still quite cheap. So I think that we have to price what cars are in public space, but also there are still a lot of funds that we can cut. I think that in general, I wouldn't like to cut on people. I would like to cut on all kinds of investments that don't concern people as first, because I think that we're facing hard times, and sustainability and combating inequality are my main focuses.
Next up, D66.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with the paid parking, but also what D66 likes to do, and I think we have different views with GroenLinks, is if we build houses to buy or to rent for market prices, we earn money as a city, and we can use that to build more rent-controlled houses. We can use that to invest in the city, so that's how we'd like to make because we own all the grounds in Amsterdam, so if we build a house, we get a fee from the guys who pay it.
Okay, thank you. More?
A lot has been said, but maybe to add on that, there are certain taxes in Amsterdam where there's also quite different views within political parties on should we lower them, should we raise them. My party says that, for example, it's called OCP-tarief. We should increase them to make sure that we can make public service accessible. So that's one concrete thing. And I think also not forget, like some of the things we're spending, it seems you're spending money, but you're also investing money back in. And we didn't have the opportunity to talk more about the circular economy, but the whole thinking behind it is that every penny we spend, we invest back into the economy. So I think it's also the matter of perspective, how you're looking at the money, short-term and long-term. And I would say also on the spectrum, at least left-wing spectrum, a lot of the money that we're spending, it's actually investment that we're returning back. So like insulating homes, for example, is a concrete example. It's not going to lower bills only for people who live in these homes, but it's also going to help us to reduce emissions much quicker. So that's also, I think, a way of looking at it as well.
This is good. The people rest. Anyway, so let us now go to closing statements. And I suppose let's just go in the order as on screen. Rutger Grootwasink, GroenLinks, closing statements.
I hope that we didn't let you down. This hasn't been the Colosseum where we as gladiators cut each other's throat. But maybe it's a good thing that we agree on quite some things. For the real differences, and some of them have been brought up. Please, I'm not quite sure. I know that D66 has an English summary of their program. We have, and probably other parties have too. Please look them up. I'm not going to make a statement why you should vote Green or why you should vote for me or why you should vote GroenLinks. Just vote and make sure that all the people in your network vote. Because there's a lot at stake. Make sure that you vote and make sure that other people vote, and you are way too smart to find your own way in who to vote for.
Thank you, Rutger.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'll try to be even shorter. If you want to look up more of our plans, it's amsterdam.d66.nl/elections. All our plans are there. And remember, D66 is a party that puts education front and foremost to make sure everybody has an equal opportunity.
Thank you, D66. Labour PvdA, closing statement.
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming to election night about something that I think hasn't been organized that much. So I also want to say thank you to GroenLinks and D66 also for taking this initiative. I think it's a great initiative. Maybe one small thing about my party. I think, as I said in the beginning, the Labour Party is committed to a fair, equal society for everyone. And I think that's the I think that's the most important reason if you want to vote for my party. Another great reason to vote for my party is that actually, if you vote next Wednesday, or you can vote Monday or Tuesday as well, by the way.
Yeah.
If you vote next Wednesday, you can make the first female leader of a political party the biggest in this city. So I would say a great incentive, and she happens to be one of the best older persons in the world. She does education, she does poverty, and I think she's done a great job. So just to close with this statement, if you want to vote Labour, vote for 4 Mormon years, I would say. Vote for Marjolein Moorman.
Thank you, Fatia. Volt, Kim, closing statement.
Yeah, also thank you for organizing this, very important. It was my first, well, it was not really a debate, but presentation in English. It was a bit difficult, sorry for that. What I want to say is VOLT stands for a new generation in politics. We bring solutions to the 21st century that are for the 21st century. Furthermore, we believe in connection between politics and the people and the politics. And I believe it's really time for Volt to be in the city council here in Amsterdam. So it's time for Volt, but it's also time for top.
Thank you, Kim. VVD, Stijn, closing statement.
I'll keep it super short and sweet. I want to thank you guys for being here, and thanks for the invite. I hope the English was okay, and I had a good time, and I thought it was quite a fun way of just explaining the things we do as separate parties, and I hope we've taught you a little bit about what we do and why we do it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all of the parties. Applause for our candidates, and applause to GroenLinks and D66 for organizing this tonight. Before we wrap up, just the most important things, as you were saying, yes, please vote. This year is unique. You can vote in person on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. That's the 14th, 15th, or 16th. Again, you can find information at the party websites. You can go to stemwijzer.nl. You can go to kieswijzer.nl. I believe there's another one as well. But, and sorry? Kies Kompas, thank you. Kies Kompas is the third one. And Dutch News. Thank you to Dutch News for helping prepare tonight. And DutchNews.nl has, again, comprehensive information on the topics and on the election, how-to. Right? Thank you again for putting this together. I've been your moderator, Greg Shapiro, the American Netherlander. Thank you for coming. I'll see you at the bar.
Amsterdam. Broadcast Amsterdam, your local radio station, 24/7 and on demand. Or on broadcastamsterdam.nl.